feels more niche to me still. Cannon Girl, Wind and Dark, focus shot, 5 shots, removes a beneficial effect with a 50% chance. Again, nerf to your will runes, a buff to your resistance. And I think that's also a good buff to the Wind Cannon Girl. I don't know. Most PvP content, you don't necessarily need that buff, but I guess against giants, if you have an early giants team, then removing that. So I'm torn here. On the one hand, if you have an early giants team, removing that attack buff is good. On the other hand, 5 attacks against a giant early is not so good. Who knows? But she's got the Wind and Dark have gotten a lot more buffs other than that, so I just don't know the effect of how all these are going to interact with each other, as you will see later. The Wind Cannon Girl, her passive, they added a condition, so now whenever she is attacked or an ally is attacked. So again, it's that damned if you do, damned if you don't effect. She increases the damage she deals on her next attack by 15%, accumulates 5 times, that equals 75%, which is a big increase to your damage after everything is said and done. So if those accumulate faster, R5, for example. Well, R5 is a bad example. Rift Beasts, there we go. Now she can sit in the back row of Rift Beasts, not worry about getting attacked. Have the front row get hit with that front row thingy that attacks everyone in the front row. And if you have 4 people in the front row, that was just 4 times that she got an activation for that. So that can accumulate very quickly. Overall, I don't know how much of a difference it will make. Annie, if you are watching this, you will have to let us know. Rolling Cannon. The damage has been changed. It no longer increases according to the allies left alive and the attack power of all allies. It now increases in proportion to the number of allies left alive. I have no clue. That could be a buff, or it could be a debuff, depending on what they mean exactly. It could mean, let's say, and this is just an example, I don't know any numbers for sure, but let's say that before the damage increased 10% for each ally left alive. So you have 5 allies alive, that would be a 50% increase to your damage, for example. And then it also would increase for the attack power of all allies. Let's say the most you could get based off of the attack power for all allies was 50%. Not even sure if that would be the case or not. So the total increase would have been 100%, for example. Now it could mean that you have 5 allies left alive, you only get that 50%, you lose that other 50%. Or it could mean you have 5 allies left alive, you get 20% per ally, because they removed this other effect and they just made it easier for you to get that full increase to your damage. Shrug, who knows? Could be a buff, could be a debuff. I think she needed a buff. I think maybe if they left that as it was, she was almost too powerful. I don't know. I haven't tested anything. So we'll see. Big changes. People will have to crunch some numbers. I'm probably not going to be the one to do it. And we'll see what happens. Cannon Girl, Light. I have no clue. Increase the last AoE attack's damage by 30%. Again, just no clue what that means. Never seen a Light Cannon Girl anywhere other than getting pulled. Dark, one more time. This is her ability that if she kills someone, then she gets to shoot someone else with the same ability she just used. Well, now she gets to shoot someone else with the same ability she just used, and gets to shoot someone else, that same person who she just shot, with her S1. Did you guys follow that? So if she attacks someone, kills them with her S2, then she'll attack someone else with her S2, and then use her S1 on top of that. And I'm not sure if she can also, if she kills them, then she'll get to use her S1 on someone else. I'm not sure if that's how that works, but maybe. Who knows? We'll see. Windsliff. Big buff. Big buff. Before, creates a hurricane around the enemy and absorbs their attack speed, aka, I guess it means debuffs their attack speed for 3 turns. Now it creates a hurricane around the enemy to remove all beneficial effects and absorbs their attack bar by 50%. The inflicted damage will be increased by 30% if the enemy had no beneficial effects. Huge buff. First of all, the Windsliff already comes with a speed lead. It's not a major, 24%. I think it's 19%. But, hey, that's pretty good. Second of all, now he removes everyone's beneficial effects. That's awesome. Again, that is a debuff to will runes and a buff to resistance, and whatnot. But that wouldn't be enough. That would not be enough because he would have just removed people's beneficial effects if they had, if he went before a Wusa, for example, and then Wusa goes and does his thing, then oh well, Wusa just undid all that. But or Tiana. Tiana would go and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to increase everyone's attack bar and we're going to kill your team anyway. It doesn't matter. But now, not only does he remove beneficial effects, but he absorbs your attack bar by 50% for all enemies. So why this is good? It's good for 2 reasons. It's good, number 1, because he messes with attack order. So maybe now my Galleon is going after my AoE nuker, and I don't get to kill you. Maybe my Tiana goes after my team and messes up with other things. Stuff like that. The other reason why it's good is because he actually, the way they phrased it is he absorbs the attack bar by 50%. So if he does that on 2 monsters, in Arena you'd be facing 4. If he does that on 2 monsters, then he gets another turn immediately. And he has another AoE ability. So if you are running Despair runes on him, and he removes everyone's will runes, reduces attack bars, takes a chance to get a Despair stun on people because it's an AoE with a damaging effect. I assume it does damage. I'm pretty sure it does damage. Then he gets another turn because he just increased his own attack bar by 100%, and he does his other AoE and gets a chance to Despair stun people again. I also think it gives people a chance to land glancing hits, like it gives the glancing debuff. So all of a sudden, you've really just messed with you've CC'd like their team, you've messed with their team, you've removed their will runes, debuff to will runes, buff to resistance, etc., etc., etc. Huge buff for him, especially when it comes on a monster that brings a speed lead to the table and has a fairly high base speed. Rakshasa all increased their damage by 11% on their first skill. Awesome. Buff to Hua. Probably is being done to combat how much the Chakram Shaman and Boomerang Warrior combo was being used or needed for like the fastest teams. Water Dark Wind, Fast Swing. The damage increases as your attack speed increases. They took that away. 2 absorbs the enemy's attack bar by 20%. I actually don't know exactly what Fast Swing does. I'll look at that later. But means that you kind of want to build them with less speed and more attack, first of all, because they're getting their speed by absorbing people's attack bars, and they don't deal damage according to their attack speed on that skill anymore. I'm not entirely sure why that is a buff. It might not be a buff on that one. But, yeah, whatever. It looks, at the very least, a side grade. Water Rakshasa, her S3. The damage inflicted will be increased by 50% if the target is immune to stun. That's just a buff for PvP content. Sorry, PvE content for the most part. Maybe you want to use her in Dragons now. I don't know. I think people will still build the twin combo. But now they don't necessarily have to, because they can maybe build the Water Rakshasa early game. Who knows? Wind Rakshasa has a very interesting passive. She basically has a Vile proc for her passive. And if you put her on Vile runes with the Vile proc passive, she can actually take a lot of turns, sort of rapid fire. And I think could be very funny, but you have to get kind of lucky to use it. They buffed her passive from a 15% chance to activate to 20%. Cool. And then if the passive skill is not activated, then the activation chance will be increased by an additional 20%, I think. So every time you don't get that passive activation effect, then it becomes more and more likely that you will, which helps reduce some of the RNG of her. Honestly, they've been... I feel like she's slowly becoming worth building. Especially since her Fast Swing can absorb the enemy's attack bar by 20%. I'm not sure how many swings they get with the Fast Swing. Maybe she gets 3 and she gets to absorb the enemy's attack bar by 60%. Who knows? But, well, I could find out. But I feel like she could end up just being worth building with that passive. Vile runes are very powerful. Imagine if you got Vile runes from 2 different sources and just took like a whole bunch of infinite turns. It'd be funny at the very least. Light. If the enemy has beneficial effects, decreases the duration of beneficial effects by 1 turn when you attack. I'm not sure how many attacks Cruel Whip has. Again, debuffed will runes is what it is. Assassin, again, buffed their S1 by 11%. Relevant buff. Probably done to help versus not help, but to make them more competitive in PvE versus the Chakram Dancer Boomerang Warrior combo. Water Assassin, Blade Dance of the Reaper. They increased the minimum number of attacks from 2 attacks to 3. Okay. And they added an effect that if you kill someone, then the cooldown time, then you get to reuse it, basically. That's cool. Where I see that being the biggest benefit is in lab against different bosses. If you use her S3 against one of their crystals, you will still have that S3 versus the boss, whereas before I felt like I had to save it so I could use it against the boss. Might also be good versus in PvP versus Garo, or the Dragon Knight, the Fire Dragon Knight.